It's the SKOR North Twins Show.
All right, SKOR North Twins Show extra innings. Declan Goff live from Target Field on a Feedback Friday. New wrinkle here on the SKOR North Twins Show. On Fridays, I didn't really do a lot of content on Fridays last year, but on Friday home games, I'm going to try to get out here and do at least a batch of feedback questions that I've compiled throughout the week. Questions that maybe shop up here in the YouTube channel for those who are watching and consuming this episode. So this will be a new wrinkle into the SKOR North Twins Show. We have minor league updates. That is also part of a new staple for this year, new benchmark, and Feedback Friday, just like we do on a variety of our other shows at SKOR North. I'm going to make that a staple here on the SKOR North Twins Show. So if you have any comments that you want answered on a future episode, if you want any information or background on things that are happening with players or the manager or strategies, drop me a comment. I'll do my best to get you an answer. So if that's something you're interested in, by all means, reach out. I'd be happy to chat with you. By the way, also hit that like button and subscribe button here on the SKOR North Twins Show YouTube channel. My name's Declan Goff. In my second season here, covering the Twins in a podcast form, gathering you information and access from the clubhouse, from the manager Rocco Baldelli, from anything else I'm hearing in the organization. So if this is something you've just recently discovered, hit that like button, subscribe button. It'll make my life a lot better. It'll make the SKOR North Twins Show's life a lot better. We're inching closer to 5,000 subs. That's me running for the visual audience. Inching closer to 5,000 subs. So if this is something you like, I'd love for you to support it too. So let's start here. So Twins begin a 12 of their next 15 games are here at Target Field to begin their first big homestand after being on the road for a variety of games to start. So 12 of the next 15 here, starting with the Detroit Tigers for 3 games. Then the New York Mets will come to town for 3 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then the Twins have an off day Thursday before hitting the road and then being home again for basically another week. So let's start with David Festa, who fans are going to probably, by the time this episode posts, he'll be making his major league debut. It actually dovetails into the first feedback question from Robert here, who says, how does Festa's pending promotion impact the call-up timeline of Zebby Matthews? It's a great question. So Rocco touched on in pregame availability that he doesn't want to just limit this start to David Festa just being the only start, and then he's shuffled it back down. Number one, I think mentality-wise, that's a pretty crappy thing to do for a pitcher. And number two, if he has a great start, we saw this from Simeon Woods Richardson last year. He was called up because Louis Varland is so ineffective in the starting rotation. People thought, is this just a spot start? Ends up having the rotation spot till the end of the season. So, yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, and maybe if you're connecting dots, does it make a lot of sense for Festa to make this spot start? They've pushed people back. So I believe tomorrow is it Simeon and Chris Paddock that will throw the ball for the Minnesota Twins to close out this series. Then there's an opening again on Monday for Pablo Lopez's spot. Does it make a little logistic sense for David Festa to probably just be optioned, and then you call up Zebby Matthews and you go from there? Yeah, I mean, that could also be a path. But what if Festa pitches really well tonight? I mean, this team who got a great start from Joe Ryan on Wednesday and a pretty solid start from Bailey Ober also on Thursday in the finale against KC, they need as many lively arms as they can get. So if Festa shoves tonight against the first place, the Detroit Tigers, does he stay in the rotation? He certainly could. I wouldn't completely rule it out. I think it's likely he goes back down, but I would not completely rule that out. Riley says here, any update on Brooks Lee? So I believe from what I was told, Riley, is they need Brooks Lee to get as many at-bats as possible with the St. Paul Saints. Just talking to some people in the organization about that he hasn't really seen much major league pitching since he's been rehabbing and whatnot. My guess is he spends the entire weekend with St. Paul and then is called up and activated from the injured list and from the Saints for the Monday series or New York Mets series for 3 games there. I would bet that's the plan, but that also creates another roster decision. What do you do? Do you just put down Mickey Gasper? Do you put down Edward Julian? There's a couple different ways they can go about that, but that is the latest on Brooks Lee. A couple more here on our Feedback Friday. Vit says, we have 3 pitchers in AAA that all deserve a shot in our rotation. Why not move 3 guys out of your current rotation, reload on good prospects, trade Joe Ryan, trade Pablo Lopez, run out the rookies alongside Sim and either Paddock or Ober, whoever you keep. Build 3 years from now, plan on Walker Jenkins, being the cornerstone. on the latter part of Walker Jenkins, he just went on the injured list again because he had an ankle issue that's been plaguing him since spring training. He just played like 2 games in Wichita and then was immediately put back on the injured list. So that's the plan with Walker Jenkins. I wouldn't expect him to be with the Twins. I don't even know if he'll make his 2025 debut this year. It might be a 2026 thing. They want him to be in the minor leagues, and I don't blame him for that. In terms of your blow up the pitching staff plan or just blow up all your tradable assets plan, I think we're still early on that. And I know Phil talked about this on a SKOR North Twins Show yesterday, that you may as well admit that sooner rather than later. And I think for business and just overall roster management, I don't think that's necessarily the wrong decision. But they're not going to punt on April 11th quite yet. If this team is still in the absolute crapper, which it certainly is tracking that way, by June 1st, yeah, they could 100% start that fire sale sooner rather than later. And maybe trade guys like Joe Ryan. I saw Pablo Lopez today, and I see some comments here about Zebby Matthews and Pablo. I'll answer those here in just a sec. But Pablo's wearing kind of like one of those compression things on his leg from the hamstring he's hurt. And I guess this just dovetails perfectly into a couple questions here. Robbie B says Pablo misses 2 starts on the 15-day IL. And Tyler says, did you ask Rocco on why Zebby Matthews wasn't recalled? I think it's just because they want to see how Festa performs today. Also, like this maybe reckless speculation, cue the sounder. What if Festa pitches really well today and they want to keep him around and Chris Paddock once again gets knocked around? Well, does Festa take Paddock's spot long term? Then maybe you figure out the roster decision to call up Zebby Matthews for the Monday start and you bump Paddock to the bullpen. Like, they don't have to make that announcement quite yet. I know it gets annoying. I get really annoyed personally. Just remove my reporter bias here or my credential bias here. It's really annoying from Twins fans' perspective. They did this with Kepler a ton last year, where if a guy is injured and not able to play, please put him on the IL and then make your corresponding roster move. You don't have to keep waiting. I know with starting pitchers, that's a little bit of a different story because they're only playing every 5th day. So it's not like you need to immediately make the call once you get that MRI. But if an MRI says that there is an injury here, let's make that decision. But to answer your question, Tyler, that's why Zebby Matthews news hasn't come through yet. I think they legitimately want to see what they have in David Festa here, who did, by the way, he got knocked around in spring training. Got knocked around a little bit, I think, in his second start with St. Paul. It is not a sure thing that David Festa sticks around here, but they can delay those decisions because they don't have to make them right away. I get that's totally annoying, though. It's very interesting. A couple other feedback questions here. By the way, hit that like button and subscribe button. This is a fun thing. I'm glad I'm doing this every Friday. So if you have feedback questions, drop me in the YouTube comment section. Tweet at me, and I'll compile some throughout the week. But a few other comments here. Let's go to Tyler. He said, when will this team decide on when this team will decide on drastically making front office changes? I don't know, but it feels like it won't happen at all. I mean, Tyler, you're not wrong. Like, they're not going to make drastic changes early, as we just kind of talked about. And it is an interesting spot because, I mean, Derek Falvey was promoted from not just, the head of baseball operations, but to team president from Dave St. Peter's position. I don't see the poll ads firing Derek Falvey. I think, unfortunately, what happens is Rocco Baldelli and the manager become the scapegoat. Now, a lot of fans who are probably pissed off at this team wouldn't hate that. They wouldn't mind seeing a manager change. Again, I don't think we're going to go down that path quite yet. And I guess it dovetails into, I asked Rocco about this today, because when are we past the early stage of a season, right? Like, it's early. They've played 12, 13 games. We've only been playing baseball for 2 weeks. Is there a point in the season where you put a bench marker down and say, you know what, we have a sample size here. We know who we are. And Rocco kind of danced around the question, mostly because he doesn't really do that necessarily, mostly because baseball players, pitchers, hitters, development, veterans versus rookies, everyone's always on a different path. So it's tough for him to really give a date, give a certain amount of games for him to admit that we're past an early part of the season. I guess it dovetails, though, into a good point about, this offense has been abysmal. And for the last 3 years under Rocco Baldelli, the 4 years even, if you go back to the 2021 season, the offense has been terrible in the month of April to start a season. So they obviously they need to know, and it's cold out, but it's cold out for every single team, right? Like, and by the way, in October, it's also cold again. It's not, unless there's a World Series played in LA, which seems very likely again. You're probably still going to not have perfect weather. And through the first, 13 games, the Twins have the fourth worst OPS in baseball at 596. They're hitting just 199. They're below the Mendoza line from a team batting average through the first few weeks. Now, I know it gets annoying. It is beautiful today on Friday. It's supposed to be beautiful this weekend here in the Twin Cities. It's supposed to be in the 60s. You know, as the weather warms up and you don't have a breath of cold air rushing into your face, does that make the offense and the ball start to hit a little bit better? Maybe. But the other teams are still winning, right? The other teams are still figuring out ways to score. And the Twins recognize that. And I think, you know, if you pumped any of those guys with the True Serum, Bracco players, doesn't matter, they would tell you that even though it's cold and it's not fun to play in, it's no excuse to be losing baseball games, right? So that part stinks. Totally get it. Totally get that part is a tough part, but it's now a trend that for the last 4 years, this team cannot hit in April. They cannot hit in the cold. What really stinks, if you guys remember, even for those that are in the Twin Cities or in Minnesota, when the World Series started last year, it was like 65 degrees on that day. I remember that vividly. Now getting to the World Series is one thing, but if it were to happen last year, it was like a beautiful 65, and knowing Minnesota weatherman, like if that happens again, if this miraculous situation happens where this team gets to a World Series this year, I'm sure it's gonna be like 37 and windy and cold. But every team still has to hit in these elements. And when you play outdoor baseball, for those that want to roof on this thing, like our old friend Rami Makloff, I know that's tongue-in-cheeky, but it makes life a lot easier when you hit in a dome versus outside. But no excuses. You can't be batting sub 200 with this lineup and with the expectations, too, that this team had. Tyler asks, a little fun question here. What's your favorite food and drink at Target Field? It's a good one. I personally, man, I know this is just very generic. I love me a good brat. I'm a brat guy through and through. Brat Boy Summer. I love mustard. I love sauerkraut on that SOB. Love that a lot. Drink. If they want to sponsor this podcast, Kona Big Wave. Love me a Kona Big Wave. Love me a brat. Some onions, some sauerkraut on there. It's definitely my go-to food and drink here when I am as a fan here at Target Field. I might actually be more of a fan sometimes at some points this year, especially if this season is not going to go according to plan. And if you ever see me, come up, say hello. Love when I do run into Twins fans here when I'm covering games and stuff, so don't ever be shy to come up and say hello. But yeah, I like those. Tony O Cuban sandwich is pretty dang good. Go check out, actually, on this YouTube channel and on our podcast feed, Ross and AJ, who contribute to Extra Innings as well. They reviewed like all the foods at Target Field. So all the new foods that are here, and I think maybe even some of the other favorites. If you're curious on that because you haven't been to a game yet at Target Field, go check out that on the YouTube channel. Ethan says, if Festa has a good start, should Paddock go to the bullpen? I think that's why they aren't formally announcing the Zebby Matthews thing. I mean, call it reckless speculation, call it what you want, and they won't. I mean, this does not come from intel. This just comes from me trying to put the pieces together. I think that's why, and they're not just going to have David Festa make the start and then tell him they're gonna go back to St. Paul, see you bye. Paddock has not looked great through the first few starts of the year. Festa had moments last year. I personally, I think Festa, I don't know if he's ready to be a major league starter, like as of this moment. I know there was peaks last year. There were certainly some valleys. I think Zebby Matthews is ready to be a full-time starter. I've talking to people and seeing enough. I think Zebby Matthews is more ready than David Festa to be in this rotation full-time, but I think maybe that's why they haven't done that. So we'll see, man. Going to be a fun one here from as hopefully the Twins maybe win some baseball games with the warmer weather here, right? And that concrete settling and the sight lines are all good. Hopefully the Twins can rebound there. Let's see. Henry on the YouTube channel says, if they punt and do a fire sale, what does the lineup rotation look like on September 1st? Ooh, okay. I mean, without putting pen to paper here, and when I'm flying solo, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Let's say who in the lineup could they get rid of? Willie Castro is entering free agency. I can see Willie Castro going. Ty France, they don't have a long-term commitment to. I can see Ty France going. Harrison Bader, he has like the team option outfield defense. Let's include Bader. Let's just include Bader for the sake of the exercise. I don't think Buxton goes anywhere. I don't think Correa goes anywhere. But you're saying obviously fire sale. Man, that'd be pretty wild. I think those three are ones if this team stinks that they'll move on from this year. And, that way you can maybe call up Emmanuel Rodriguez to play in some outfield. If you got rid of Willie Castro, Luke Keeschall can mostly play second. Curious if he can play some first base. I don't think they are trusting of him of that just yet, but that's an option for Luke Keeschall to play some first. Pitching wise, right? If they got rid of Joe Ryan, they get a haul. You got Zebby, you got Festa, Andrew Morris, Corey Lewis are other guys in AAA. I know we talked about earlier. Those are other arms that could probably potentially come up here and help you on September 1st. That's a fun exercise, though. It's a good question there, Henry. I think that might be something maybe on the SKOR North Twins Show we do in a way too a September 1st opening day lineup or starting rotation for the end of the year. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. A few more here as we wrap up a Feedback Friday from Target Field. Is the Joe Mauer statue ceremony at Target Field? I think you mean this weekend. Yes, it's on Sunday. Sunday morning is when that is taking place. So the Joe Mauer statue here. I think you take that statue. I'm stealing this from a tweet I got over the weekend. I would love to give proper credit. Forget if I'm stealing your bit. I'm so sorry. Put that statue in the left-handed batter's box. Let it take the strike. Let's take strike one, and I bet it still hits the ball the other way for a base knock and gets on base better than this team does. Why not? Why not? Let's see what happens. Could be an absolute treat to see. Joe Mauer still doing Joe Mauer things, even when he's in a statue for him. So that'll be fun. Well, hey, appreciate everyone giving me comments. Give me some feedback here on Feedback Friday on the SKOR North Twins Show. Again, if anyone wants things answered from the clubhouse on players, on the manager, on background, on injury updates, I'll do my best to answer those, but hit me up if that's something that you'd like to see here more on this podcast and YouTube channel. As much as I like to put out this information, I also am well aware that you guys, the audience, need to see stuff too. So hit that like button and subscribe button here on the SKOR North Twins Show YouTube channel. I'm Declan Goff. We'll be checking in later this weekend.